I'm putting my 45-minute timer on so that we can stay within time for today's vote on education, which is vote 5 as part of the Western Cape adjustment budget. Colleagues, because I know that my members know the drill, we're going to go through the introduction of members in the House and then introduction of members online. The Minister and the Department can do introduction. You may make introductory remarks, taking into account that we also have the book and the information before us. I will then table the pages, which we will allow members to ask questions and answers on, which the department will then deal with, after which we will then excuse the Minister and Department for the committee business of the day. My name is Deirdre Bartman. I'm chair of the committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Member Christopher Fry, member of this committee.
Good afternoon, Chair. Member Khalid Said, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Dan Plato.
Thank you so much. If the members online could just introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Furlan Christians.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Khalil Parkes.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other members online, so Minister and HOD and Department, you're welcome to introductory remarks and introductions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. David Mania, Minister of Education. It gives me a great pleasure to discuss and to present and to deliberate on the 2022 adjustments budget. I'd like to hand over to Brent Walters to introduce the team, and we stand ready to then reply to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can we just first introduce ourselves, and then with your permission, I'll make a couple of opening remarks. Okay. I'm Brent Walters, HOD for WCED.
Good afternoon, Standing Committee and Chair, Leon Eli, CFO for Education. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Salih Abrams, DDG Planning, WCD.
Afternoon, Chair, members. Matthijs Cronje, Chief Director, People Management Practices.
Afternoon, Chairperson, members. Erna Veldman, Chief Director, Financial Management.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. I'm Rian Eisen. I'm the Director for Management Accounting.
HOD.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, thank you very much. Pleased to be able to present adjusted estimates to you. Just a couple of highlights from the shift. First, to say that the budget shifts from 28.032601 billion to 28.05454 billion. It's an net additional appropriation of 17,853 million rands. The elements that make that up potentially are the rollovers of 8, which we did already in March, but now we're formalizing it now. 8.872 million from the MST grant for the delay of delivery of machinery and equipment which could not be completed by year end. Then there's a rollover of 7.441 million for training and support toolkit, specifically for learners with profound intellectual disability, and a 8.44 million rand for courier services for the June 2021 and November 2021 National Senior Certificate examination, so that we are correcting. And then there's shifting of funds between votes. The department ceded 4.1 million to vote 1 for basically for competency-based assessments for schools and for IT services, and then 2.7 million to vote 13 for the at-home learning program. You may have some environments, Chairperson. Mainly the environments are shifting 33 million from program 1, to program 1 from program 5, and that's essentially for high school improvements and for ICT corporate refresh, the Microsoft Schools Agreement, and also from program 1, to program 1 from program 7, examination and education related services, specifically for ICT corporate refresh, and then from program 2, public ordinary schools, to program 2, public ordinary schools from program 5, early childhood development for school furniture, transfers for institutional operations, and then finally a shift to program 2 of 130 million from program 6, infrastructure, and that's for transfers for institutional operations, primarily to smooth any demand that we may have inside that program. As you of course know, we just announced a big bold program, so obviously it's a scheduling issue. But essentially, Chairperson, it essentially, I think, summarizes some of the major shifts inside the programs, and we therefore present ourselves for questions here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues. I hope you have a pen next to your papers because I'm going to take the pages in the following order. I'm going to first take questions on pages 67 to 70, then 71 to 75 in the second round, then 76 to 80, and then 81 until 95 because those are the annexures to the vote. So I'm going to take questions on 67, 68, 69, 70. If I could see hands. Member Syed. Okay, Member Syed, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the head of the department for the intro. Page 67, table 5.1, infrastructure development. There's a shifting of 130 million infrastructure development funds to various other programs. Now, that is tied to later on page 71. So I know we're going to, but it speaks to 71 also, where the reasons given for shifting the funds are reallocation of funds due to challenges which are experienced within the build environment. So I just wanted to have clarity, two clarity-seeking questions. Could we probably maybe get some, and I understand that the meeting is short, but we could just give us some details around what are these challenges that led to the underspending of these funds that are now shifted to various other programs. Then secondly, thank you, I want to also understand how does the shifting of the infrastructure budget funds to various other programs, how does that impact, or does it impact in any way on the goal that was announced, I think it was last week, by the MEC, which I think is quite a good goal which we should all work towards, around creating 26,000 seats in schools next year. Are we still on course to deliver on this given this shifting? I just wanted that sense. Then on page 70, that's my last question in this one, program number 5, the reallocation of funds in terms of ECD due to the savings which have been identified in the sub-program. Just wanted to get a sense as to why were these funds not rolled over to the other grade R related expenditure. Just that, thank you. We're going from 71 the next round, eh? Oh, it's fine.
Colleagues, I just want to check. I don't see any other hands on 67 to 70. And as my sticky notes indicate, Member Syed has asked my exact same questions as well. Okay, if none other, Minister and Department.
Thank you, Chairperson. We will answer the questions between myself, Mr. Abrams, Mr. Ila can add, and Mr. Kronia, if there's anything we leave out. But maybe just to say, I just want to remind the committee that we had 2.5 billion rand in the infrastructure budget. It's a massive increase from the previous year, which I think was 1.3, if I got that correct, 1.3 billion. So essentially, when we did the presentation to the committee last week, we presented a few risks, and some of them have already been realized, as of course you know. There have been 1 or 2 projects that have been stopped, as of course you are aware. And so it's essentially a way of us making sure that in the end we will actually spend that 130 million rand against a 2.5 billion rand budget. But maybe for specifics, we can ask Mr. Evans to maybe just give a little bit more on specifics. Do you want to do that first? And then we can do the ECD.
Thank you very much, through the Chair. I think I'll, Chair, pick up where the SG just made the point about the 2.5 billion, just a correction, it's 1.7 last year, so the 40% increase in the current financial year. We planned a portfolio of infrastructure works against that. 1 billion rand of the 2.5 is assigned to maintenance work, preventative and corrective maintenance. And so the immediate question is around the 130 million, which represents on those numbers 5% of the total budget for the year. A combination of a procurement issue with our partners, putting out the maintenance work early enough in the year. We've been able to make up some ground that those procurement issues have been resolved by the Department of Transport Public Works. Those work has been issued. We've also endeavored to, as a WCED, direct that maintenance work ourselves and allocate some monies to schools. As we know, we're empowering more schools to do more infrastructure works with support. So the 130 million rand represents a portion of the maintenance budget that we believe is monies that will not be spent whilst the work will continue now and be accelerated so that we deliver it by the end of 31 March, by the end of this financial year. We believe there's a bit of a lag with paying those bills. And so this is a reforecasted or reprojected cash flow into the next financial year. So we will still need the 130 million rand to pay for maintenance work that had been delayed but has now been picked up. And so whilst the work continues, the monies that we would need to pay for that work, we project that we will not pay that and risk the 130 million. We will not pay it by the end of this financial year. So we will work with the financial team to pay those invoices in the next financial year. To the question of does it compromise the build program? No, it doesn't. So what we've done is similarly to the 1 billion rand for maintenance, the other parts of it, a combination of capital works programs, both new schools and classroom builds. Whilst we've put some additional fundings to that as we've generated savings and or other projects have not materialized, as the HOD points out, it's still the residual 130 million is the bit at risk. And so we have dedicated funding for the capital works programs. But as I've explained, the key monitoring activities around our maintenance work and making sure that that is not compromising its service delivery, notwithstanding it, we'll pay it a little bit later on into the new year. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Eli, can you deal with the ECD, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. Just around ECD or grade R and ECD, when we prepared the budget, we obviously were looking at a particular scenario around especially around the universalization of grade R. That is not going at the pace we'd like it to be, but it is happening the part of this year. So, but again, due to that, we've realized some savings in that program, but it's not compromising service delivery from that perspective, because it's about converting our staff to permanent positions. I'm not sure if we briefed the committee previously, and it's part of that particular process. As we go through that, we realize some savings there. As far as that particular matter is concerned, and then also around the ECD sites, we're not receiving the claims as we anticipated the amount of claims. So that results in a small bit of savings to us, and that's what we are shifting to other programs where they are needed as well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions before I move on? None? Okay, I am now dealing with pages 71 to 75. Any members on pages 71 to 75? I see member Syed. Are there any members online? If none, I'll go after member Syed, and hopefully he will cover my questions too. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Hopefully, so I'm on page 73. Sub-program 2.4, conditional grants, the reclassification of the expenditure within the National School Nutrition Program conditional grant. I just wanted to get a sense. My first question is which non-profit organizations are funded in the program, and what do they do exactly, and what are the criteria to fund these NPOs? Then secondly, do we have any progress or update with regards to the finalization of the tender for the 2022-2024 period, and for that tender to basically be put out there? Thank you. I think that's all I've got. 76, is it part of this? No, eh? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Page 74, subprogram 5.4, Human Resource Development. It indicates there that an extra 1.6 million rand will thus be moved in order for tuition payments related to the ECD practitioners. So I know that earlier it was said that, that the claims from ECDs for things like registration and so on is not coming in quick enough. So is this for new ECD practitioners? Is this for practitioners that came over? What exactly will this funding be utilized for on page 74 under the subprogram 5.4? And then just on page 75, under the other adjustments, where we are shifting the finances to the Department of the Premier for the competency-based assessments. Now, I kind of get the change regarding the information technology resources and services, but I just wanted to understand, I didn't know that the Department of the Premier was in the business of developing competency-based assessments. So if you can just maybe clarify what exactly that is for and why they are doing it instead of education. Thank you so much.
Okay, Chairperson, I think Mr. Eli will deal with the three questions, but maybe just if I could just comment on the last question that you perhaps asked. So remember now, when we appoint any person, we look at whether they have the skill set commensurate with what their job entails. For example, if you're appointing somebody in a leadership position, they should be able to lead, they should be able to supervise, they should be able to organize, they should be able to plan. They should be able to handle pressure. They should be able to cope with setbacks. So, for example, there's a battery of tests that the Department of the Premier has done with psychologists. We'll put that together for psychologists on behalf of the whole government, and then we tap into that battery of tests to be able to do that. So they draw down from that, and we then, as we use, we obviously have to refund them whatever we use. Mr. Eli.
Yeah, Chairperson, just around a question on page 73 around the conditional grants. Just to say that the classifications that's been used here is according to our standard chart of accounts. So our standard chart of accounts refers to non-profit organization institutions. In our particular case, it refers to schools when we make transfer payments to schools. So it's not about outside bodies. In this particular case, it's to our schools. So what's happened in this particular program, we have, instead of transferring the money to schools, we've now gone and going to procure the service ourselves in this particular case around that particular adjustment. So that's what it's saying there. So it's not about outside parties here. Then as far as the progress around the tender is concerned, that is in the final stages of finalization. We'll be awarding very soon. So yes, Chair, we're almost there. Yeah, I don't want to say anything more because it's in that particular phase at the moment. But yeah, we are almost there as far as that is concerned. Then, Chairperson, around your question around ECD practitioners, Chairperson, every year we take in more. There's two lots. There's the one that's existing, and there's others that comes in new as well. And that agreement we have with the TVET colleges as well. So that money that sometimes depends on the intake as well. And we adjust it accordingly because sometimes we make estimates. Sometimes they are less and sometimes they are more. And in this particular case, we're taking in more ECD practitioners as well to the TVET colleges. There's a formal agreement we have with TVET colleges that we sign every year. Thank you, Chair.
Any follow-ups? Just with the ECD practitioners that we're taking on, the extra ones with the 1.6 million, how many will be funded with this? Do we know? That's fine. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I don't see any other hands on pages 71 to 75. I don't see any hands online, so I'm now going to table 76 to 80. Hands on 76 to 80. Member Syed, any other hands? Okay, thank you so much. Member Syed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mr. Eli for the responses to my previous questions. On page 76, I'm looking at table 5.3. Infrastructure development. I just wanted to get a sense, is the department in any way concerned with what seems to have been slow spending and what mechanisms are now put in place to curb that or to avoid underspending. We're not necessarily saying that everything in the environment is in the hands of the department and that you've got control over changes that are happening in the environment. But notwithstanding that, how do we mitigate? I just wanted to get just a brief sense. Thank you.
Mr. Abrams.
Thank you so much. Wag. I know you guys
Sorry,
are all
Chairperson.
excited to answer.
Sorry, Chairperson.
Colleagues, are there any other questions on pages 76 to 80? Member Fry?
I might have a follow-up to Member Said's question.
No, you might not. You must first hear the answer. Yeah. Then you might have a follow-up to Member Said's question. Page 76. No. Page 77. Oh, no, I just was saying there, well done for the changing in the reporting format, but I'm not sure if it's the Department of Education or if it was Provincial Treasury that forced you to make this change in the reporting, but I noted and I appreciate it because it cuts it up in the 50-50 for the different months. Then on page 78, program 3, regarding the independent school subsidies, I know a number of them have not necessarily received their payments yet. It's a little bit lower than the average last year, and that payments are released once the schools become compliant. But has there been any progress in these schools coming back to you regarding the respective documentation? One would always hate for, similar to ECD, one would hate for schools to be missing out on funding simply because they are sending not inappropriate, incorrect documentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams, the first question. Mr. Eli, the second question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, yes, we are concerned. Of course, on a R2.5 billion budget, we would have worked to meet a cash flow of about around R260 million a month. Further to my early explanation, with R1 billion of maintenance work, which is the aggregation of a lot of small projects, one of the key shifts we would have done is enabled, of course, by the rapid build program approval, move the work from those small maintenance projects to bigger capital works projects and accelerate it through securing land and buildings so that we can get into construction of those new schools. And that will take up, or from an expenditure perspective, we probably spend more money. So we spent R429 million in November. So in terms of quantum, our shift of work firstly to bigger capital works projects and then accelerating that into construction through due diligence and the right processes means that we have a better risk mitigation strategy given the size of the number. The other key activity was around, or two key activities. One is we pronounced on 852 classrooms. The technology and the modalities of how we do that is we work to order those classrooms in bulk. Those are concrete classrooms. And so again, a very active strategy to take on that work into the WCED and then mobilize the management contractors we had procured early in the year to move those classrooms forward means that there's certainly we have work packages that we've put out that we believe covers not just the 2.423 that's now in the table, but 100 million rand in excess of that as well. So the work has now gone out. The challenge now, as I appraised the committee, is that we're in a very challenging time of year with it being end of year. And so an additional step in terms of proactively engaging the management contractors to, as far as they could have done, they've committed to working through the summer holidays on these new school and classroom build projects. We have that in writing. Of course, there's a long supply chain of local contractors. And so that initiative was meant to set the scene that we are going to work right through what would traditionally be lower months of spend, December and January. So that work will continue. And then finally, the reason I say I'm concerned, of course, it is a difficult time of year, but also we've seen the need to be more proactive and more engaging in our community engagement. We can't suffer any delays on the grounds as people build understanding, communities build understanding of what it is we're trying to do at pace. And so putting more resources to engaging communities and working through and the building understanding of what it is we're trying to do. So we see a number of risks that we are working to mitigate. Of course, the other matters that circumstantially moves around the infrastructure sector. How do we actually do procurement? How do we actually mobilize lots of contractors? Those risks don't go away. So it's a very active, almost proactive risk management strategy. We now need to spend about R1 billion to financial year end. And a combination of those big capital works, the shifts to big capital works, the shifts to bulk classroom buying, and asking and working with our contractors to work through the holidays is something that we're going to push on and communicate on publicly going forward. And then lastly, but by no means least, I spoke in the standing committee last week about accelerating, making schools safe, those schools that have been on the waiting list as we work budget options to replace and/or rehabilitate them. The one last, or not the other key intervention to make up the ground in terms of the spending is around accelerating those rehabilitation, upgrade, repair activities as well. So a big mix of big pieces of infrastructure work. It's now the diligence of delivering on that through very difficult time periods, the end of year holiday break that is, and into the new year. Thank you.
So, Chairperson, on the independent schools, just to say to you, I think as department we try as best as we can to assist those schools. The issue here is that they have to jump through a couple of hoops, and that's not in education. That is either with Department of Social Development or any other, or the City of Cape Town, whatever the issue is that they have to comply with. Their particular requirements becomes applicable before they can then come to us, and then we say, okay, that's fine. Because the reason why I know that is because one of them phoned me, and then I had to assess whether we can assist him or not, and we can't assist him from a perspective that those requirements are not with us. Their MPO status and the certification of that doesn't lie with this department. And so there are various of these things that some of these schools actually struggle with, but it's not a departmental issue. I think from our perspective, we would like them to comply so that we can pay them because we've kind of made provision for them. But Chairperson, hopefully there's still time for them to comply, and then we will pay them as well. Yeah, thank you.
You know, your current minister in his previous job had a red tape reduction unit. And while you're speaking to me about all of these like red tape and like lots of departments, all I can think to myself is, does this department have a red tape unit? But before you answer me on that, I know Member Fry had a burning follow-up question on Member Said's question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's so burning that my throat is sore. On infrastructure development, I see that it's a minute, and maybe the chair can guide me here. The percentage spend of the budget is a mirror image of what happened in 2021, 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So my questions are: did the suppliers and did the vendors work through the 2021, 2022 festive period? And if so, are they going to do it for the second year running? I know that COVID hit everybody. Would they be? Are they actually going to be willing to work through a second festive season? Coupled with that, there clearly is a seasonality trend here, where the budget spent for the first 6 months is less than the budget spent for the next 6 months. What is that seasonality trend through per month? Because we're seeing it, as the official said, there is a traditional dip in December, January, and then the third thing is, my concern is materials planning. In the construction industry, we have lots of projects that are hijacked literally by a cabal of people that are extortion tactics, and then materials planning. Will we have enough material, like actual material, like cement, bricks, mortar, those things, to actually justify this, or to spend the 63% budget, even though the budget is increased from 1.7 billion to 2.4 billion. I hear the fact that the department is going to spend it, but is it realistic? And I'm not sure it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Mr. Abrams can add on to the answer. I will just give a generic answer, Chairperson. Firstly, number one, last year, yes, the pattern was also there and in the previous year, but last year the pattern was there, but we spent the budget in the end. And I think with the plans that we have put in place, we're confident that we'll spend again, as we have indicated here to the committee previously and in this committee now, that we are confident that that we will spend. But I do want to remind the committee that in that presentation that we had done to this committee, we pointed out risks. You mentioned some of them, but all things being equal on what we know about the environment, we're fairly confident that we will spend the budget. But I don't know if Mr. Abrams wants to add anything.
Thanks, Chair. The pattern observed is around the second year running around the maintenance contracts and being able to distribute that work, firstly procured and distributed. What's different is we've gone with a contingency plan. We knew we had, in the context of infrastructure planning, be a multi-year activity. So what we are able to implement is a function of the planning we would have done in prior years. And so the work programs, we had those big infrastructure projects in the pipeline, and I think a combination, I know a combination of the operating model change, which we've done internally, and we can speak to if the chair thinks we need to substantiate that. But the operating model, and then being able to direct our own management contractors. We have 5 at our 5 construction companies that we're directing ourselves, who we've asked to work through the holiday period. So they had not worked. The construction companies that servicing education infrastructure had not worked through the public holidays last year. This would be the first year that they're doing that. The way we've spent it last year was also similarly allocating monies to capital works. But this year, given the scope of having to take on the very ambitious rapid build program, we're having to take that on because we simply have made the commitment to place every child. I think that's the relationship. So pushing that work with support from our contractors is something that we've been public about, and so we'll continue to manage that risk. And the materials, as much as we can say we've been assured. I've had conversations myself about cement. We're concerned about cement. We were concerned about the ports being shut down, and I think we've had assurances the materials are in the country. Now it's working with traffic services about allowing those trucks and heavy construction vehicles on the road to bring those materials to where they need to be, given the season that we're in at the moment. So we're working with various other departmental agencies around that. So the seasonality in the way the construction sector works, of course, they shut down between 15th December and 15th January. For the committee's appraisal, what we've done is we've been more accurate in what work exactly and in which communities we'd want that work to happen. So we do think that as it pertains to, do we have the work, do we have the contractors mobilized, and do we have the materials, higher levels of confidence, member, around that. Lower levels of confidence around the communities and the context in which we're delivering. Those externalities, those factors that we can't control around, disruption at site level, those are more nuanced. But to the extent that we can control our contractors, the labor force, and the materials supply, we're confident the materials are in the country. The contractors have committed on paper to working with us, and now it's controlling the broader risk agenda. But it's still a sizable task, and so it is very ambitious. And there are clearly risks that we have to mitigate through the holiday period. I take note of the concern, and we'll continue to proactively communicate about our progress in this regard.
And the red tape unit desk, do you have one? Do you want one, Minister?
So, I mean, obviously, just in the red tape desk for economic development, there's a lot of work being done in relation to that. I mean, I think just in general, obviously, people speak about red tape, but you're also guided by what the rules and regulations say. So they obviously always attempts to try and reduce that. That's all I can say at this point. I mean, obviously, we have to watch the space and see if we improve in terms of our speed of delivery, put it that way.
That's okay. I'm being ambitious because we hold you to very high standards in the committee. Colleagues, with that, I'm now tabling pages 81 to 95, which are the annexures to the vote. If I have any questions on the annexures. Member Brancais, if you're online, did you see that the adjustment for the infrastructure is also in the annexures? as well as in the overview of infrastructure that was tabled by the Minister of Finance? Okay. No problem. Thank you so much. There are then no questions on pages 81 to 95. Colleagues, before I before I allow the Minister and Department to leave, what I wanted to just say is just thank you. The committee is going to deal with the deliberation on the vote now, but it has been a tumultuous 2022. And with all the various things that happened this year, I think that the Department of Education has really outdone themselves, and you can all be very, very proud. And when you go into recess, whether you are busy building buildings or not, please do take some time to rest. Please do take some time to read to your children, to spend time with your families, and to come back refreshed in the next year. Because in the Western Cape government, we still have lots of work to do. Thank you so much, Minister.
Chairperson, thank you very much on behalf of the team for the questions, and let me also thank you for your kind words. I'm delighted that the Honourable Fry picked up on, and the Honourable Sayed picked up on the Rapid Build program. We are pushing through into the holidays, which is unprecedented. It has never been done before, and I think it symbolizes something about the department's commitment and determination. Leave in the infrastructure environment and in the finance environment has been cancelled in order to execute what we believe, as I said, is the biggest, fastest, most ambitious rollout of school build in our province. And we've been very clear with the committee about the risks, but we are nevertheless going to push ahead, and I think it symbolizes something, as I said, about the absolute commitment from this department. So I also want to acknowledge the excellent work being done by the Western Cape Education Department. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to check. I don't see any public in the house, and I don't see any public online. They want to ask questions? Okay. With that, Minister, HOD, and Department, you are adjourned from this meeting. Only yourselves, the rest of the committee members must stay for its committee business. Thank you so much. Colleagues, if you can please remain online so that we can deal with the deliberation on the vote, as we have 7 minutes and 14 seconds left. Wonderful. Colleagues, as we take our seats, if I could have views on the vote, please. Member Fly?
Member Chair, I move I move the vote.
Thank you so much. If I could have a seconder.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. That's from Member Plata. I see Member Sayed.
Thank you very much. I just want to, as per Rule 90, also just express the minority view on behalf of the ANC that we do not support the vote. Reasons were stated, and we'll go into more during the debate. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much. Are there any views online?
Chair, I just want to emphasize that the ACDP support.
Thank you so much. Any other persons who want to table views?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, from the Alzama also, we also want to express our minority view in not supporting the vote. Thank you.
Okay, Member Brinkers, I just want to make sure, because you sound a little bit like a robot, so I just want to make sure that you indicated that you do not support the vote.
Robot, Chair. No,
Okay,
I don't.
thank you so much.
We don't support
apologies, Member Brinkers. My procedural officer just alerted me that I can't take your vote because Member Christians is the fifth voting member. Apologies, but thank you so much. Ms. Hassan Musa, if we can just flight the draft report. And then I will read it, but if you just flight it for the online members, please. We're just giving it a second or two just to load. Perfect. Thank you so much. With the vote then being supported, I'm going to read out the report for adoption. Report of the Standing Committee on Education on Vote 5, Education in the Schedule to the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill B3 2022, dated 28 November 2022, as follows. The Standing Committee on Education, having deliberated on the subject of Vote 5, Education in the Schedule to the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill B3 2022, Committee in terms of Standing Rule 188 reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to not support the vote. Colleagues, is this a correct reflection of the vote?
Yep.
Thank you, Member Fry and Member Syed in the House. The report is then adopted. Colleagues, yes? No. We are we are not going to be spicy right now. Colleagues, are there any requests for information or matters that you want to ask now? Member Syed?
Chair, just, and I'll probably also maybe look at it with a written question, but just I don't know if it's regulations or has any regulation maybe or been put in place for the working during the holidays, because we don't want the case where officials are going to oppose and start to, with all the unions and all of these things, and not necessarily unions, but just whether there have been measures put in place around ensuring that there will be this work taking place during the holidays. Thanks.
So basically the plan for the labor and making sure that that everyone's on board for working through the festive season.
The labor plan, and maybe also, I don't know, we had a discussion on Member Fry, probably even the supply plan, because we know, I mean, you try to do building work during that's the period when builders, suppliers, they all go on holiday. So I just wanted to see what is the plan for that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And my one was, I wanted to know how many ECD practitioners were being funded by the 1.6 million extra that they're getting in for the new crop, essentially. Okay, anything else? Colleagues, with 1 minute and 28 seconds to spare, I want to say thank you so much for the robust engagement in education during this year and on this vote. I know that given that education is the second biggest budget in the Western Cape government, it isn't always easy to get to everything, but I do believe that the members of this committee is committed to this topic, committed to this department, and committed to making sure that the education for all learners in the Western Cape province improves. With that, I hope you have a lovely holidays further. I'm going to give you the same sentiments I gave to the Minister and Department. Please go and tell your families that you love them, because the 2023 year, I am sure that we're going to kick the year off running. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, colleagues. With that, the meeting is adjourned.